Hey guys, you're watching Boogie Plays Games, or sometimes Boogie Plays Games. And I'm not going to play a game today, I'm going to play a game in the background, but I'm going to talk a little bit about Fallout 4, give kind of a post-mortem now that it's officially out. This is kind of a review, but not a review-style format. I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, the overall impression of the game now that I've had a good couple of weeks to play it. So Fallout's been out for over 2 weeks now, and that means pretty much every review that's ever going to come out is out. And depending on which format you picked it up, it's got a Metacritic score between 84 to 88, which puts it in the pretty notable game category. It's clearly not the perfect game or anything close to it, though it's a pretty damned good one for a lot of different reasons. They didn't get everything right, but they got some things right. So I'm going to talk about what they got right, I want to talk about what they got wrong, I'm going to talk about what I think they might have done different, and overall, we'll just give a general opinion of the game. First off, the game is massive. And this is what I've always come back to Bethesda games for. Anytime they create a game, they create a massive sandbox with tons of things to explore, tons of things to find, tons of locations to go to, and just a ton of stuff to do. And you kind of have this freestyle where you can do whatever you want to do. Obviously, there's scripted stuff in the game. Obviously, there's events that you're going to find. Everything is permanently placed for the most part, with the exception of a few encounters. There's definitely a storyline, and there's storylines, sub-storylines that you'll come across from time to time as well. But in general, the gameplay is like a giant sandbox, like Skyrim, like the Elder Scrolls, like the previous Fallout 3 game, pretty much the way you expect it to be. And that is, of course, why Bethesda games like Fallout 4 are so beloved. You get an incredible value for your game. Many people will put 60, 70, 80, 100 hours into a Bethesda game, exploring every nook and cranny, collecting every gun, doing whatever the hell it is they want to do, many times even ignoring the main story quest. I haven't even really started the main story quest at this point. I've just been going out into the wasteland and exploring it, and after 60 hours of gameplay, I've only really put a dent into the game. The downside to this is that every Bethesda game has a price for that grand, epic world exploration. And that is because they focus so much on the detail of the world and the detail of the universe and creating this massive open sandbox that a ton of times you deal with a ton of bugs. And we're talking like minor graphical glitches or minor issues that can just kind of throw out your immersion, or you could have actual game-breaking glitches that will keep the game from progressing and ruin your save files, even though there's massive, massive numbers of save files, and you're probably hitting quick save every few seconds, as you should be when you play this game. There's still a chance that even I had a quest that would not progress, and you can ruin your save state, and that can be really frustrating. Fallout 4 is no exception to this rule. It is definitely a rose that has its thorns, and you're going to get stuck by some of those thorns several times while playing the game. However, for the most part, it's worth it. Unless you hit one of those game-breaking bugs that corrupt your save and then are for some reason unable to scroll back to one of your previous saves, you're probably going to be fairly forgiving of those bugs, and the industry is as a whole because of the trade-off being such a massive sandbox to play in. Now, to be entirely honest, after 60 hours of gameplay, I've only hit one bug, which I easily just scrolled back to a previous save to fix. I've seen no graphical issues or other issues. I've had very few crashes. After 60-some hours, I'm very satisfied with the state of the game, and I think that's the case for most people who have played it. So knowing those bugs are out there and knowing that it's part of dealing with a Bethesda title, let's talk instead about the game design changes, knowing that they're going to patch out those problems and knowing that modders are going to fix those problems as we go along. My biggest complaint about the game is easily the changes to the dialogue tree. And I did not think this was going to bother me until I had played the game for some period of time. But they've gone to a dialogue wheel, which I find to be very unsatisfying. Now, I was not very satisfied with Fallout 3's dialogue options either. I felt like I was digging through a lot of options that I knew I was never going to do. I saw a lot of repeated information from NPC to NPC, and it was all frustrating. I thought if they omitted that stuff and they went with fully scripted voice acting, we would have a much better game. In a lot of ways, that is true, but in a lot of ways, it's really, really wrong. The purposes of those dialogue trees in Fallout 3 is twofold. First, to either give you actual choice, knowing that there are actual consequences to the things that you choose for dialogue options in Fallout 3. The second reason is to create the illusion of choice. And this is something that is completely ignored in my experiences in Fallout 4. I never feel like I'm making an actual choice. I never feel like my choices have any impact. And 99% of the time, it's true. They have no real impact on the story. Now, looking back on more recent Bethesda games like Skyrim or Fallout New Vegas or even Fallout 3, we see that that's pretty much true there too. There are only a few minor instances where dialogue choices make a huge impact, and very few instances they even make small impacts. So it's not a huge loss, and it doesn't really destroy the game, but it's something that I wish was there. Second big design change is combat, and I love combat. Now, the gameplay you're seeing, I'm playing my VATS-based character, and the reason I love the Fallout universe from Fallout 3, New Vegas, and of course Fallout 4 is because of VATS. But if you choose not to use VATS, you have the option of actual gunplay. And the gunplay this time is very, very satisfying. Even when I run out of VATS points, I'm very happy with the game when I'm actually having to shoot, when I'm actually having to snipe, or use any other weapon of the game. It's fun. Man, did they nail that. Legendary creatures in the game are also fantastic. Unique items being dropped, these champion or starred items, are fantastic. They're fun to collect. It adds a lot of excitement to me every time I come across a champion, knowing that I'm going to get some unique loot, even if I'm not going to use it. It's just fun to collect it back at my settlement. Speaking of settlements, this is probably one of the most polarizing points of the game. Either you love it or hate it. Very few people seem to not have a feeling towards it. The idea of collecting junk in the game and using that junk to build up and alter your settlements, to add a kind of a Minecraft thing to it, is a great ideal and concept. In execution, it's not particularly good, and the choice to tie a lot of the skills that you need to charisma was particularly frustrating, because I found after playing through the game my first time without much charisma at all on my character, I was simply unable to build or do some of the things I wanted to do with settlements, which is okay, because with my first playthrough, I decided to ignore them almost altogether. I did all the settlement quests and unlocked a bunch of settlements, and I did that mostly to get the gear and the XP and as an excuse to explore the world. I really, really hope that they won't leave it up to modders to make settlement customization better. Because as it is, I feel like it was tacked on to the last minute. I feel like it was half-assed. And as much fun as it's been for me, and as much fun as I've had doing it, it could have been so much better. And I really, really wish that had been the case. After designing my first base in my first city, I was just kind of done with it. I still collect the junk, thinking one day I will eventually process it and use it to do stuff. But otherwise, I'm not using any of that junk for anything. However, when it comes to armor and weapon modification, boy, is that a great system. I adore being able to mod my weapons, to make them look different, to make them act different, to find a base weapon in the game, realize that it's good, take it home, and create whatever it is I want to, or even better yet, modifying these champion or star weapons to make them even better feels so good and so satisfying. And even though most of the monsters, even at level 33, feel like not much of a challenge because of how great my weapons are, I love being able to sculpt a variety of weapons that use different types of ammo, scrounging that ammo in the universe to try to make sure that I have enough to use all the different guns that I've created. It's just a very, very satisfying system. Power armor is a different story altogether for me. I'm one of those people that hoard consumables, and since I've only found about 16 total fusion cores, I'm kind of hesitant to ever use power armor. When I do use power armor, I feel too powerful, but there have been a few instances where if I didn't go in with power armor, I would have been absolutely miserable and have been devastated. So it's a good system for getting you to use it sometimes and not all of the time. I think it would be annoying if you walked around in power armor the entire time, but for a player like me who doesn't like consuming those fusion cores, I find myself collecting power armor, modifying it, and not actually using it very often. I think that was the intent by the designers. That's why they gave you power armor early, so that you had it and you knew you could use it whenever you needed it. I think that was a good choice ultimately, even if I do find it a little bit frustrating. Initially, I thought the world was going to be way too small when I saw an original map. I thought there was no way I'm going to get as much enjoyment out of this as I did Fallout 3 or Skyrim, and I was wrong. While the map is very, very small, It is very dense with a lot of places to explore, dungeons, if you will, or different buildings or things or experiences or quests or NPCs. It is a very detailed and very rich experience. When I watch other Twitch streamers or YouTubers talk about this game or play this game, after 60 hours, I still haven't seen most of the things they'll talk about. They'll say, have you gone to this place? Have you gone to this place? I've never even heard of that place, and I played this game for 60 hours. I probably got another 60 hours to go, and I probably still won't have seen everything. And because I will need a completely different character build, or I need to level up my character and put a lot more points into Charisma, I still haven't done everything there is to do in Settlement. Once again, it always comes down to this. Bethesda games are the best bang for your buck, and Fallout 4 is no exception. If you're a budget gamer who's looking to pick up a game and put a lot of hours into it, Fallout 4 is definitely that game. If you're able to overlook some bugs and some frustrating situations, then this is definitely the game for you. If you're the kind of gamer that's turned off by the slightest problems or the slightest issues, or you want to wait till it's all fully patched, that's understandable. But for the most part, Fallout 4 is a game that I think everyone could buy right now at full retail price. And unless they hate this style of combat, unless they hate RPGs, unless they hate this style of game, they're definitely going to get their value out of it. Time and time again, I consider uninstalling this game so that I have the hard drive space for other games. But at the end of the day, I refuse to do it because I know after 60 hours of gameplay, there's so much more to do, so much more to see and explore, and I simply cannot bring myself to walk away from this game. So do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments section below. As always, guys, thank you for watching. I love you very much. I'll speak with you again soon.